Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled Karen Breaks into Tears When in Front of Cops, Judge. This also happened around 10 years ago, so I may miss some important details. Sorry. Characters: Mom, Dad, me, and Karen plus some Ninor characters like cop, judge, employee. Important background: my mom is paralyzed from the waist down, so my dad and I would take her out grocery shopping every now and then. She had a motorized wheelchair, but it was too bulky to take with us to the store, so we brought her non-motorized, push, wheelchair with us. Dad would push her around, while I would pull stuff off the shelves she wanted us to get and put them in our cart. One other note: Dad has a voice that he's used in the past to scare people. Just ask old potential boyfriends of mine. While doing this, Karen began yelling, "Hey miss!" Then whistling, then the dreaded throat clear. I put the last item in the cart and turned and said, "Can I help you?" when she thrust a list at me and demanded, "Get me the stuff on my list." I should note that I look nothing like the employees. They wear blue from head to toe basically, and I was wearing a yellow sundress with daisies on it. I said, "No, I'm helping my mother now. I think there's an employee at the front desk who can help you." She didn't like this and reached out to grab my arm, saying something like, "You will help me now." Sorry, no threats of, "I will get you fired." I shoved her away, shouted, "No," when I felt the blood running down my arm where her nails had broken my skin on my bicep. Dad looked over and kinda freaked when he saw the blood and shouted, "Leave my daughter alone." Mom was looking at something on her list, but my dad's voice was loud enough to get an employee to rush over. He asked if there was a problem, and my dad said, "This woman just assaulted my daughter. Do you have a first aid kit or something to help her out? I'm going to call the cops while you get this." Upon hearing the word, cops, the lady just sunk to the floor crying and trying to say it was just a misunderstanding. When the cops arrived, I had been bandaged up and the manager had come up, and upon listening to my and my dad's story, as well as the employee describing the aftermath, they went to the back with the manager to check the video. Meanwhile, the lady is crying, saying, "I'll lose my kids. No, sorry," or anything like that. The cops arrested her for assault on a minor and took her away crying. At the trial later, the two things I most remember is that she was on probation and did indeed lose custody of her kids. I think the father got them, and she tried to say, "It was an honest mistake, I thought she was an employee." Whereupon the judge said, "Even if she was an employee, what gives you the right to grab someone like this?" while showing her the pictures that were taken of my bloody arm. She broke into more tears as the judge read her sentence, including the loss of her children due to violating her probation, plus some community service, I think. Much later, as part of her effort to get her children back, she had to write me a letter of apology which is still in my parents' attic in a box. The next story is titled Old Navy Mistake. Now, two things to know. 1. I'm moving, so most of my clothes are packed, so most of my outfits right now are just what's closest to me and comfortable. I don't think much before putting on anything. 2. I have Bluetooth earphones, and when I'm out I just put one in my ear and go into my own zone and mouth along the words. So, my family and I went on a trip yesterday after church to get some last-minute things before our flight this week. My dad and brother, who are going to be staying and working, went to the hardware store, while my mom, sister, and me went into the Old Navy just beside. We quickly dispersed and I just wandered around before my mom shows me some nice pants. They fit well and I get 2 pairs and start looking at shirts to see the patterns. I ended finding one with cacti on the front pocket, and the words, "Don't trip over what's behind you," on the back. I laugh as I had just tripped twice that morning. As I look for my size and fold up the one I was holding, a lady comes up and asks what the back says, to which I read it to her and tell her how I had tripped that morning and how fitting it was. She says something I can't quite hear, laughs, and picks up one of the shirts, and I go off with the cacti shirt and another shirt for size comparison. The changing area in the store was messy now. There was no employee at the station and the changing rooms were a mess. Remembering the message of, "Leaving it better than you found it," from the sermon that morning, I decide to clean up the room I was in. After I put things back on hangers and such, I put them on the rack for clothes people don't want to buy. Finally leaving the changing area, I see a lady looking around and then back up to a model. She looks at me for a moment, so I pause my music and ask what she's looking for. She points up at the pants on the mannequin. Lo and behold, it's the same pants I planned to get myself. They were just nearby, so I show her them and she thanks me, and I tell her no problem, and that I'm planning on getting a pair too. She looks at me shocked and says, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I thought you were a worker." I smile and tell her, "It's fine, I would have helped anyways." I check out with my, sadly not cacti, shirt, and pants before meeting my mom outside. I think back and wonder how they know I worked there because I was carrying a purse and my jacket before I realized. I had worn a navy blue shirt, and navy blue pants, and I was mouthing words to my music like I was taking to someone on a store communication device. I laughed showing my mom and she laughed too. The next story is titled "Family Parks in Our Driveway and Want to Sue Us Because We Towed Their Car." My family lives 2 minutes away from a very nice little Chinese restaurant. It's quite popular but got limited parking and visitors always must park a few minutes away. Around 10 minutes away is a good spot that is even advertised by the restaurant. A few weeks ago, a family apparently thought the 10 minutes by foot or away too much and decided to park in our driveway, directly in front of our garage. Don't get me wrong, you can't mistake our driveway for a normal parking space. We have flowers and a small tree surrounding it, like a small front yard. Anyway, we don't really know when they arrived, but when my mom came home at 7 p.m. the car was already there. She parked on the side of the road and went inside, thinking we had guests. When neither my dad nor me had anyone over, my parents asked all our immediate neighbors, and when no one knew whose car it was, we waited for an hour and called the towing service. It was 9 p.m. by then. They came and took the car away. At around 11 p.m. someone rang at our door. Who would have guessed it was the family who owned the car? A mom, a dad and 2 brats. When my dad opened, already pissed because it was late, they started to scream in his face. "Where is our car? We parked it here and went to the restaurant. Why is it gone?" This got my mom's and my attention too. My dad wanted to stay calm and told them that this was our private property and they illegally parked there and that we got their car towed. After they heard that, the parents completely freaked out. The screaming and name-calling that followed made their kids cry and my dad closed the door on them. We then went on with our evening. An hour late, let me remind you, it was 12 a.m. by now, the doorbell rang again. My mom already went to bed and me and my dad were in our pajamas. We both went up to the door. The police stood in front of us. They told us that the family, that stood behind them and had waited an hour in front of our house, accused us we had totaled their car and ignored them. We told them what happened, and after they didn't see a totaled car anywhere and we were in our house, they believed us quick. The officers told us they're sorry and left with the family in tow. After that, nothing really happened until we got a bill in the mail. They seriously sent us their bill from the towing and demanded us to pay it or else they would sue us. My parents consulted a lawyer, and he told us to just ignore it, they can't do anything. After that we didn't hear from them again. The next story is titled "I Don't Work at the Grocery Store, Y'all." These happened 3 separate times at the same grocery store near my house. All are at least a year ago, but I only realized recently that these are situations where people thought I worked there. For context, we really like the self-checkout setup at this store because husband can stand at the scanning station ringing up the items, and then a conveyor belt sends them down to me where I can bag them and put them in the cart after. It's super efficient with the 2 of us, so we really like doing this. Most other people we see are there alone, so they scan all their purchases first, and then walk down and bag everything up after. We're usually the only duo making quick work of it, but truthfully it's because we're both introverts, so we're moving fast to buy our crap and get the duck out of there. Cue the confusion from other people. First incident, short and anticlimactic. An excited lady came up to me, smiling, and said, "Wow. How do I get one of those?" Indicating to me bagging where everyone else has no one bagging for them. I think she's being conversational, and I'm newly married enough that I'm still used to the weird things people say about marriage that make no actual sense to me. So I smile back, gesture to myself, and say something to the effect of, "Marry a good one." Her smile fades as she looks back and forth to husband and me, realizes we're married and I'm not the grocery bagging lady, and then she glances around awkwardly while wandering off. I think the interaction is weird, but move on and don't think about it until the next 2. Second incident. We're creatures of routine, so you bet we're doing the exact same setup of husband scanning and me bagging. Right next to us are the smaller self-scan stations, so the bagging area is right next to the scanner and it's ideal for people there alone with 15 items or less. Unfortunately, this is the height of lockdown in the US and lots of places are getting short-staffed. So the scanner can sometimes mess up and there's no staff member standing right there to help you. Cue this non-interaction. I'm much better now, but I've always had social anxiety, so big places with lots of people make me retreat even further into my head. Loud people only make that worse. A woman at the smaller stations is speaking loudly and aggressively, but I'm not listening because I'm busy. I hate being in public, so I'm probably at my limit on interacting with others at this point. And also I just think some people are loud sometimes and I don't need to care, so I don't. Our scanner needs some employee input too, so we're unfortunately just standing around waiting for someone to come clear the error, just like loud woman likely is. I also have a problem with overwork. I know. I'm trying to cut back, I promise. So I take the opportunity to get on my phone and check work emails and probably fire off a response or two on whatever the hell project I have at the time. I'm still not listening to loud lady, but she's close enough that it's sort of obnoxious as she keeps speaking, but I'm absorbed enough in work crap that I tune her out as best I can. Work email sorted. I distinctly remember avoiding looking her direction because she's loud and I'm really reaching my duck I hate being in public limit, but eventually looking behind me as I finally register she's aggressively trying to get someone's attention. Since I can tell it's directed a certain direction, totally missing it's at ME. I remember looking back behind me and only seeing the bathrooms and some random patrons milling around. Weird, I think, who the heck is she talking to? There's no one over there. Oh well, not my problem. People are all sorts of strange, and I go back to aggressively minding my own business, a skill I am incredibly proud of, for the record. Right around this point, thankfully an employee appears, codes whatever thing our scanner needed and then walks over to aggressive lady next to help her. It's at this point, as I'm giving a sigh of relief that someone can help her and get her the duck away from me, that I finally turn towards her as we're grabbing our things to leave, that I see her point at me and, I assume, in hindsight, ask the employee if I work there. Employee looks confused. I only half heard what she said because I was still aggressively minding my business, but I stop and pay more attention seeing her finger pointing at me, and now I'm giving them both my full attention. Employee says no or shakes her head as I vaguely remember, but what I remember super clearly is loud lady now just stares at me with her mouth open. Legit just this face I see people throw all over the internet. Eye mouth eye. Husband's finished throwing the last few things in the cart and starts heading towards the exit. So I just smile at this random lady staring at me, no idea what the hell just happened, but leave. Only in hindsight did I realize she was probably trying to get my attention all that time. But y'all, I am talented at tuning things out. I'm from a huge family with 4 older brothers who were constantly getting into something, so I learned young to tune out chaos that had nothing to do with me. Also, real talk, people in the ghetto are taught to do that because no one has time to pay attention to every single thing going on around them. And I only notice people wanting to do that who grew up in safer neighborhoods. No problem, live your best life, but I want nothing to do with most situations, especially chaotic ones, because it benefits me in no way to get involved, and, if anything, can drag me into a bad situation instead, so I stay the duck out of stuff. Third and so far last incident. You guessed it, same setup as always at the conveyor self-checkout. This woman was so nice, but good gracious I'm dense and she missed so many opportunities to realize her mistake, so this was a perfect storm of lol all around. We're stuck with an error or input needed again with no employee in sight, so I'm on my phone while standing at the bagging part as usual doing, you guessed it, work emails again. I have a problem, I know, but get chastised enough for missing one godforsaken important tidbit buried in an email once, and it's easy to become way too attentive as an overcorrection. Anyway, this nice lady walks up to me and gives no context but says she needs help. She looks about my age, maybe only a little older, but I was frequently mistaken as being younger than I am, so that probably isn't helping me in these situations. I actually don't mind helping people anywhere if they come up asking for help, and since I'm stuck waiting anyway, I say sure and ask her what she needs. I honestly forget what her problem was all these months later, but I remember it was something where she too needed an employee. So I told her to stand at the station where employees usually are stationed and wait for someone. I say this with a smile, think nothing of it, and go back to work on my phone. I don't remember the exact way she asked for help again, But I remember I was typing a response to a coworker, boss, and she interrupted me twice, so I was at first accommodating but the second time asked her to let me fire off work email first and then she could ask her question. This time she tries to lead me somewhere, and I vaguely register my husband saying my name to get my attention as I start going with her. In hindsight, yeah, I was clearly mentally checked out to start following her. I stop, a little alarmed that my frazzled overworked brain was snapped to attention so aggressively, and husband tells me gently that she thinks I work there. He turns to say something to the lady, but I laugh and say, she doesn't think I work here. She just needs help. I'll be right back. I turn back to her with a smile and gesture to go ahead. Whatever she says ends as back up at the employee station where I tell her she needs to wait for an employee. I remember her mentioning something about how it takes so long for someone to come, and I gently reply that I'm sure they're understaffed like a lot of places are, so we just have to be patient and we'll all get through it, etc. She then asks sweetly why I couldn't help her, and I genuinely still don't click that she thinks I work there, so laugh and say I probably could figure out their MS-DOS system if I tried. But you know that's it because I still think we're just being conversational. Husband's still hanging out with all our stuff at our register, so since I can see we're not leaving anytime soon, I hang out with the lady a bit and make what I assume is small talk while she's actually trying to genuinely figure out why I can't just do whatever thing she needs done. Because she's so nice about it, I think some of her questions are a little weird, but just keep being a total dunce by thinking we're just chatting as two people passing the time in the same situation. Oh, what department do you work for? Oh, I do job description, which is really cool because eventually, an employee comes and keys in whatever we needed at the register where husband has been patiently waiting, and I tell lady it was nice chatting or whatever and go to leave. It's at this point she asks, a little panicked, where I'm going, and I'm genuinely confused as I tell her I'm going home. Her mouth is a little agape as she says, home? Then who's going to help me? I tell her an employee will, and that I'm done shopping so that's why I'm going home. She keeps gaping as husband hands me my purse and jacket and I think she finally realizes, maybe, who in the world knows, and wanders off as I turn around and leave. Husband gently, again, tells me she thought I worked there as we're leaving, and I again laugh and go, no, I don't have to work somewhere to help people. I realize typing this out that I must be an exhausting wife to keep up with sometimes, but he's very patient with my overworked brain. I also realize typing this all out for the first time that I stopped checking work emails over the weekend, what I was doing in these stories, but I was just answering work stuff at a friend get-together last night at 8 p.m. on a Friday night and husband told me I've got to stop working after hours then too. And I responded in a huff saying I wish I could but boss this and that. I have a real problem, I finally realized. Time for hard stops, my brain is always so dead these days. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and post some bear emojis in